All right, today we're diving into what is, hands down, one of the most famous defense speeches in all of history. This isn't about legal tricks or fancy loopholes. Nope. It's a philosopher's profound defense of his entire life, all recorded for us by his student, Plato. So let's step into that courtroom and see how Socrates argued his case. And this really is the question at the heart of it all. For Socrates, this trial isn't just about saving his own skin. He's fighting for an entire way of life, the philosophical search for truth. And get this, his jury is made up of 501 of his fellow citizens, and they're about to decide his fate. So picture this. It's Athens, 399 BCE. Socrates, this 70-year-old guy who's a familiar and frankly often annoying figure around the city, has been officially charged. The accusations? Corrupting the youth and not believing in the city's gods. And the penalty they're asking for? Yeah, it's death. Now, this is where Socrates' strategy gets really interesting. He doesn't even address the official charges at first. Instead, he goes after a much older and way more dangerous enemy. All the rumors and prejudices that have been poisoning the well against him for decades. I mean, just think about the challenge here. How exactly do you cross-examine a rumor? How do you fight a prejudice that people have held since they were kids? He says it himself. It's like he's shadowboxing with ghosts right there in the courtroom. So you've got to understand, he's really fighting a war on two fronts. On one side, you've got the formal accusers, guys he can actually see and question in court. But on the other, there's this powerful, invisible force of public opinion, built up over years of slander. Socrates knows that's the real enemy he has to defeat. So you might be asking, where did this reputation even come from? Why did people think of him this way? Well, according to him, it all started with a mission, a puzzle, really, from a god that he just felt he had to solve. Imagine hearing this. The oracle at Delphi, which was pretty much the most respected religious authority in the entire Greek world, makes this incredible announcement. But Socrates? He's completely baffled. He says, wait, me? I'm totally aware that I have no wisdom at all. So what does he do? He sets out to prove the god wrong. And that's what kicks off this whole investigation. He goes and questions a politician who knows nothing but is convinced he knows everything. He talks to the poets who write these beautiful things but can't even explain their own work. Then the craftsmen who are experts in their trade but think that makes them experts on everything else. And then, bam, it hits him. The oracle was right. His only real wisdom was in knowing just how little he actually knew. And this, right here, is the absolute core of Socratic wisdom. It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the humility to realize that, in the grand scheme of things, human wisdom is pretty much worthless. You can probably guess, right? Going around showing everyone they're not as wise as they think? Yeah, that's how you make a lot of enemies fast. Okay, so now that he's dealt with the old rumors, Socrates finally turns to the official charges and to his main accuser, Meletus. And this is where the philosopher turns into a master cross-examiner. He's about to lay a brilliant trap.
So here they are, the two official charges. And look, on the surface, they sound pretty serious, right? But Socrates is about to just tear them to shreds, logically.
He kicks things off with a deceptively simple question for Meletus. He asks, okay, Meletus, if I'm the one person corrupting all the young people, then tell me, who improves them? And Meletus, you can tell he's already feeling the pressure, gives this absolutely wild answer. He says the laws, the jurymen, the city council, the assembly, basically the entire population of Athens improves the youth. And Socrates? He's the only one who harms them. To show just how ridiculous this is, Socrates uses this amazing analogy. He asks, what about horses? Does everybody improve horses? Or is it just a few experts, horse trainers? The answer's obvious. So how on earth could it be the exact opposite for something so much more important, like our own children? All right, next up is the impiety charge. Socrates gets Meletus to clarify, are you saying I believe in different gods or no gods at all? Meletus doubles down and says Socrates is a complete atheist. But then Socrates corners him and gets him to admit that Socrates does believe in supernatural activities. And boom, that's the trap. Socrates points out that you can't believe in supernatural activities without believing in supernatural beings to perform them. The charge is a total contradiction. As Socrates puts it, Meletus is basically accusing him of not believing in gods while at the same time believing in gods. It makes no sense. So after completely dismantling the legal charges, you can feel the tone shift in the courtroom. He's not just defending himself anymore. Now he's explaining his life's purpose, and he's basically warning Athens not to make a huge mistake. And this is his moment of absolute defiance. He tells the jury that even if they offered to let him go free, on the condition that he stops doing philosophy, he would refuse. He's making it crystal clear. His mission comes from a god, and that's a higher authority than any court in Athens. Then he gives them this incredible metaphor to explain his role in the city. He says Athens is like a great, noble horse, powerful, but also a bit lazy and slow. And he, Socrates, is the stinging gadfly sent by a god to buzz around and pester it all day to wake it up. He might be annoying, he says, but he's absolutely essential to keep the city healthy and awake. And that leads us to probably the most famous line from the entire speech, maybe in all of philosophy. The whole point of being a gadfly is to force people to examine their own lives, their own beliefs, their own values. Because for Socrates, a life where you don't constantly question yourself, well, that kind of life just isn't worth living. Well, despite everything, the jury isn't convinced. They find him guilty. And now, in his final remarks, Socrates reflects on what that verdict actually means and why he isn't afraid of what's coming next. He approaches the idea of death with this incredible, calm logic. He says, look, it's got to be one of two things. Either it's just nothing, a peaceful, dreamless sleep, which honestly, he says sounds like a marvelous gain. Or it's a journey, a migration of the soul, where he'll get to meet and question all the great thinkers of the past. I mean, for a guy who loves asking questions, what could possibly be better? So either way you slice it, there's nothing to be afraid of. And that brings us to his final haunting words to the jury. There's no bitterness, no self-pity, just this deep sense of humility. He doesn't pretend to know who's got the better deal here, him going to his death or them going on with their lives. He's leaving that up to the divine. And so in the end, Socrates' whole defense really boils down to this one timeless question. He truly believed that his accusers and that jury, by condemning an innocent man, were doing far more harm to their own souls than they could ever do to him. And that's a question that's just as powerful and challenging for us today as it was in that Athenian courtroom thousands of years ago.